Steve, obviously very disappointing. What did you make of this decision with Sam Davis?
I think it's obviously disappointing because I think it was a great game, 6 tries, game's going down to the wire. Yeah, I think the only thing we're really talking about is the non-decision. There was a clear and obvious try, which is disappointing, and I think it damages the competition's integrity and image, which is the key factor in all this. It's not just about the one outcome, but I think the important thing is how we work on together, is how we get systems and structures in place that these things, with these decisions, we can get right going forward, because we don't want it damaging our product, because I think the Guinness Pro 12 is a real good product, and we want to be talking about all the right things that are going on with the tournament.
Do you think your reading of it was the correct one? You think that it was a legitimate score?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think it's a clear and obvious try. It's gone to World Rugby, and all the feedback we've had from World Rugby is it's a try.
What have they said?
Just the fact it's a try. It's not a held tackle, and it's a try. So there's no sort of real ambiguity about it. It was a try.
Have they issued a statement or told you that Friday?
No, like at the end of the day, a lot of conversations go on behind closed doors and around it, and there's been a lot of dialogue in around it, and it's gone to World Rugby, and it's come back, and it was a try.
So what would you like to see happening now? You know, clearly the points have gone for you.
Yeah.
Would you like to see? Do you just put it down to human error, or would you like to see some kind of action?
I think that, yeah, obviously there's human error, but I think it's just about working together in around how we put systems and structures, whether you're looking at the Sansa competition, whether you're looking at other sports, on how to make our product better, because ultimately I think we're talking about the wrong things. Like, you're not talking about the 6 tries that were scored out there, the fact that Connacht could have still gone on to win the game, and it takes away from what was a real good advert for the league. I think in around going to Connacht, our boys have played pretty well, and in certain aspects of the game, but ultimately we're talking about, I think, the wrong things, and what we want is to grow the Guinness to be one of the best leagues around.
Well, what are your broader comments about the quality of the officiating in the Pro 12 this season? How have you found it as a region?
Like, I'm not going to sit there and start slamming people. It's something that a lot of conversations go on behind closed doors, and there are some positive ones in how to make our game better, because I think that's the important thing. It's how we get more supporters to come to the game, how we don't want to be talking about incorrect decisions. We want to be talking how good games were and enhancing our Guinness Pro 12 product, which I think is got some real good games. Really, look how tight it is in around the league now. I think there's a lot of positivity around it, but we want to keep making that product better.
Would you like to see, Steve, neutral teams of officials?
Yeah, look, I think that's one thing that you can talk about. I think that would obviously help, but I think it's being a little bit more broader minded around how we can do things our own way in around the competition. You don't have to follow suit. I think it's important you go to other competitions and you see how different things work, and I think sometimes looking at different sports, I know it's different rules and different ways of officiating it, but I think you can take ideas and what suits us going forward. And I know there's a lot of, with Martin and I and people like that, there's a lot of dialogue in how we do that, and I know there's a lot of conversations behind closed doors that are all about growing our product.
You had an apology from the Pro 12 or from George Clancy, Steve?
No, I haven't spoken to George since the incident, and I think it's something that like there's been a lot of dialogue with the senior officials in around it, and it has been pretty out there, and the reaction to it all. And like I say, it's something that we don't want it to be about. It's something we want to be about our rugby, and ultimately going forward, it needs to be making correct decisions going forward. But we've got to work together to get that product.
But would you like to have an apology? Because, you know, I mean, in the context of this, remember the tightest playoff race there's been in a Pro 12. If you miss out by say 2 points to the end of the season, it's going to be that decision would have directly meant you don't get something out of the season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, look, I know there's a lot of frustration around it, but it's something that we've got to be focusing on us. And I think if we dwell on it for too long, there's been loads of conversation, like I say, over the last 48 hours after the game. But ultimately, when you look back at the Connacht game, we still had enough opportunities to get the job done. It is frustrating that the clear and obvious try isn't given, but there's nothing we can do about it. We still had opportunities to score more points, and I think probably defensively there's a couple of tries we've leaked there that's not quite like us, and those are the things we can fix quite quickly, and those are the things that are in our own hands, and that's not up to other people's choice. That's about how we do things. I know you can look at the point situation and things, but we ain't going to get them back. It's just making sure now we are really focusing on Leinster and how we're going to undertake that game and making sure we get something out of it.
You're not the first coach to talk about the standard of officiating. There's been plenty of occasions. We've Pat Lam on Solomon's recently.
Yeah.
As coaches as a whole, are you happy with the channels of communication and processes that are open to you in regards of discussing the match officials? Or do you think your concerns have been taken on board?
Yeah, I think that there is dialogue. I think everything can get better, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think it's making sure we look outward and around it. I don't think it can be just rigid, and what that is I think we've got to look to keep making our game better. And like I said, outside of that, it could be any other sport, Sansa, those kind of things we've got to look into really heavily. It may be the fact that we may be right, but I think we've just got to keep looking and trying to further and better our competition.
What was your human reaction, Steve, when you saw that incident? It came at a vital stage of the game, 27-22. What was your human reaction?
Yeah, the desk had a good slam in, if I'm honest. But yeah, it was the hand is still sore. I've been to see Towers today to have a bit of treatment on it. But no, it's something that, initial reaction is really frustrating, but then we've got a clear try about 70 minutes, we've got a 3-on-1, we bomb an opportunity, and it's something you move on quite quickly from it. It is frustrating, and it is probably, like you say, you score that, you're guaranteed a losing bonus point, probably minimum of 2 points coming home, but we've just got to look at ourselves and how we could have been better. And I think defensively, which we've spoken about, we can't continue to give people's head starts in games. Like, look at, I think the last 10 games, 9 of them of the first quarter of the game we're behind, and I think it's making sure that we get our performance right so we can take other people's views and decisions out of the equation and making sure we get our own house in order.
What is going on with your defence? Are you traditionally a strong defensive side?
Yeah, I think it's like there's been a lot of change and a lot of chopping and changing and things, but ultimately I don't think we started particularly well. I think we turned the ball over too many times. We defended sets and probably our own 22 far too easily. You look at first kick off the game, we set the tone. I know Ben's knocked it on, we don't mean to do it, but straight away you're under pressure. Then we've got a couple of kicks that have gone out in the full, we turn over a couple of set piece, we get a couple of rolls wrong in our defensive line, and all of a sudden you're 14-3 down. And you can't give, when you go to the top of the league and around Connacht and they form a home, you can't be doing that. And the one credit you give to the group, all of a sudden you find yourself back in the lead and they fight their way out, and nothing sort of phases them, and we keep going at it, and we've scored some really good tries. And like I say, I think we should have scored a couple more, and that coming away with 2 or 5 points I think would have been fair for us. Whether it be 2 or 5, I think the encounter, I'm not saying if we'd scored 4 tries it would have still been enough for us, but I think it would have been a real positive result for us in and around the context of the game and the start we had.
So all this makes this weekend's game really important, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's at the end of the day, we knew this period was going to be huge for us, considering the start of the season we had. And I think the boys' 2 points against Glasgow, I thought was outstanding win in Munster, backed up with a real tough battling victory against Edinburgh. And I think we probably let ourselves down a little bit, but I think that's where, when you get a couple of changes in the team, you've got a young group and things are up and down, you always get those little bit of blips. And we're hopeful that's a blip, but we're still really confident to go to Leinster and put in a performance.
What were the pluses and minuses, of the effort last week?
Yeah, I think going to Connacht, we scored 3 tries. We've probably bombed 1 or 2 as well. So we're showing that we can do things. When we're doing things smartly and we do the basics well, I think we've got a base of a real good team, but it's making sure that we've got brilliant moments, but then they don't become really average moments. I think we need a little bit more consistency in what we do, and take a little bit more individual responsibility of when we've got the ball, we have to look after it, and ultimately we need to be a little bit sharper and starting off games.
You must be pleased with Baker's form of late. He seems to be...
Yeah, he's really stepping up. I think on the whole over this block, I think it's been a real positive for us in around how, like, you got Ollie Cracknell coming through, young Gareth Thomas, you got Nicky Smith, Scott Orton, Sam Parry's really stepping up to the plate, and then Rory's coming through, a big workload for him. He's a young man playing a lot of games, and then Sam Underhill, like, it's good to have Tyler back, and it's Owen Watkins getting plenty of rugby, so I think it's exciting for us. It's just, like, obviously we had a bit of an indifferent start the season where we're chasing it a little bit, but I think as a squad and as a club, I think we're in a real good space with some of the young group that's coming through and some of the senior guys that are helping us through this period.
And Leinster, how do you assess them this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. They're in good form. Obviously, they're high up the table. They'll probably have a few boys back from Ireland, but I think what we spoke about the last 4 weeks is making sure that we focus on ourselves and taking care of the basics that we want to take into the game. And I think if we get the performances, then hopefully the result will look after itself.
How's your injury list, Steve? You got anyone coming back?
Yeah, Tyler's back training. I think Sam is a real doubt for the weekend. But apart from that, I think we should be okay. Touch wood.
What have been of Rhys Webb's form since he's come back, Steve? Obviously, got his first try since he's come back on the weekend.
I think really sharp. I think it's a credit to Rhys how physically he looks after himself. His diet, his rehab, how he's pushing things forward all the time. And the one thing with Rhys, you've got to rein him back. But I thought the way he's managed the group, and I think that the group see how intensely he trains and how he does things and how he's lifted the standard and how he demands standards in around training. And it's great to have him back. I thought he managed the back end of the game really well. Out in Munster, I was disappointed he didn't feature against Edinburgh, but that's something, I think that's where our squad is growing, with the likes of Brendan, Abbas coming through. You still go on to beat good teams like Edinburgh, and I thought he was such a threat on the weekend, and probably he got us going and got us going forward, and probably we should have finished off 1 or 2 more opportunities.
It's impressive to see rugby so sharp, so soon after coming back, Steve. Now, a lot of players, it takes some time, doesn't it? But he seems to have come back really on the money. Yeah,
I think at the end of the day now, he's an international. He's matured a hell of a lot over the years. He knows his body, he knows what he needs to do, and Rhys is ultra confident in his ability, and I think he's got a well-rounded game. Physically, he knows he's in great shape, and he knows at the end of the day he does all his homework, he does everything he needs to go into games, and he probably knows he's going to perform rather than just expecting it.
The suggestion is that Wales might look to maybe have him on the bench and Twickenham in that game next week. I mean, from your point of view, I'm sure you'd rather have him here, but will he be ready to come on into the heat of a Six Nations decided, did it?
Yeah, I think Rhys is so confident. It won't phase him one little bit, but I know, like, speaking to him, he's really focused on the game of the weekend as he wants more rugby. But I'd have no doubt if Rhys was going into that off the bench, he would do Wales a real good job.
Just with the sort of boys who got the Wales under 20s, you know, they're going for slam guys like Keelan and I mean, they're showing up well. A couple of them had experience with the first team. We touched on the youngsters earlier. I mean, how confident are you in the next generation that's coming through behind what you got now?
I think it's really exciting, and I think it's been like a tough year for us in around the World Cup and obviously the Six Nations, and probably a pretty big injury list, but it's something that we know the talent that's coming through. And you look at some of those guys out there, they're under 18s playing for the 20s as well. Like, so you got Kieran Williams as well, Reuben's come in, so those boys could be still playing age grade for our under 18s, which I think is exciting. And like, you got Adam Beard, who's featured for us, who would be in the 20s. Owen should be in the 20s, and we're playing these guys earlier than we've ever done. You've got Rory, who's still a real young man, who's maturing week on, week out, and it's good for Rory now to come through, like, 5-day turnarounds from Munster to Edinburgh in a senior environment. He's getting a lot of reps in around training, managing, growing all the time. And like we say, we got O's, and I just think over the last couple of weeks, you go Gareth Thomas, Scott Orton, Sam Parry. Nicky Smith didn't even make the match day 23 last week, and the fact of Paul was back, and we trust in Gareth Thomas doing his job off the bench. I think that for us is really exciting, and I think that competition for places is huge for us. You got Ollie Cracknell didn't start against Munster and Edinburgh, who was devastated, and the fact that these kids, every time they come on to perform, I think is really exciting. And like I say, Connacht, we were frustrated probably for the first 50 minutes, even though we were still in the game, and around a lot of what we could have controlled, we didn't. But like you say, for the future of Ospreys, I think it is really exciting. And you've got some experienced guys like Biggs, Webby, Allen Wynne, Tips to go alongside that young talent. I think the future is really bright. I know it's tight in around the league at the minute, but I see going forward the future is really exciting for Ospreys rugby.
And just on your new signing for next season, Steve, what are you hoping that he's going to bring?
Yeah, I think he's been in a pretty decent environment in the Crusaders, and I think he's a late developer as well. Things haven't come easy for him. He started and he's done his trade. He didn't start playing for the Crusaders till he's a little bit older. This is like his 3rd season in. Seems like a real good bloke. He's been done a lot of leadership work in around Tasman and things, so he's pretty excited to come. He's a big lad, and I think it's only going to help us in a position where we feel we need a little bit more strength and depth. I think that's really exciting. He's keen to get over, and I think to go alongside the likes of Becky. And I think when you get people from different cultures coming in, I think it's only going to enhance Owen, young Tom Williams, Keelan Giles. These boys are going to only benefit from that. And I think, like I said, around the young front rowers, we've got a front row away in Wales duty, but I think now we've got probably 3 front rows where we're putting them out now with Mafu and things. And Dimitri, you've got Jav, and that kind of thing. It's only going to help us go forward and be able to rotate, because we've got so many big games that it's week in, week out. We need squads, and I think the development arm of the business has done a hell of a job for us in continuing to bring these young kids through for us. And then when we go overseas, we want them to aid the development of our younger guys, not sort of take those spots.
Steve, you mentioned how tight the table is. How much room for error do you think you've got in terms of the top 4, or maybe not?
I don't think we've got much margin for error, if I'm perfectly honest. It's something that we've got to win. I'd probably say minimum of 5 out of 6, if not. Like, we've got to get something in Leinster, and I think we've got to probably win our back 5 games to have a real shout to that, and potentially pick up a few bonus points along the way. But ultimately we can't look too far ahead. We've got a pretty stiff challenge out in Leinster the weekend, which the boys are pretty excited about. We did have a fair old debrief after Monday and where we need to perform and where we need to be a little bit better at, and whilst keeping the positive end of some of the rugby we did play. But we know that there's very little margin for error for us in the back 6 games.
Is that a challenge that you thrive on every game almost as a cup final?
Yeah, I think it's something. I don't suppose it's any different of a challenge. It's the fact of we're pretty grounded in the fact of we go week to week and around what we do. We see where it's going, and that's it is. Like if our group perform in Leinster and we put in the performance we want and we don't get the outcome, there's not a lot you can do, and that's something as a coach I can live with. But it's just making sure we put those performances in to give us every chance of victories, and if we do that, then we won't be too far away.
And ahead of this massive period, a win in Leinster really gives you momentum, doesn't it? That really can be a platform for the many games.
Yeah, well, we'll go into a 2-week window where we'll have a bit of a break, which will be good for some of the young boys who've put in real shifts over the last couple of weeks. But it's something then the internationals come back, they see we're thereabouts, and the squad depth, and it'll be something that'll be huge for us going into the back 5 games.
Do you think you get a bit of a boost when the internationals come back?
Yeah, I think it's always a boost, and I think if we can get another win through this block, if we could beat Munster, Edinburgh, Leinster, draw with Glasgow, and only be losing 1 game for this period, I think when the internationals come back, it'll be a real great place for them to come back into. It won't be too much to chase down. We're still in touching distance of it all, and it's something that a lot of it will still be touchwood in our own hands.
Is it easier to chase or be chased?
I'd rather be chased down, if I'm honest. It's something, yeah, I definitely prefer that. But it's something it isn't this year, whereas last year people were chasing us down and we were in control of what it is. But it's something that, like World Cup years and things, throw up different challenges, and I think it's something that's the first one I've gone through, and I've learned a hell of a lot through this season and what we need to be. But ultimately it's about a squad depth, which I think through this season we've really enhanced the squad, and I think it's definitely fattening up, which is exciting for us, even though you've got to go through a little bit of pain to get to that point, because like the Rorys, the Garth Thomases world don't get experienced by not playing and not performing, and they're doing it younger than ever, which is great for us. And I think, like I said, the future is bright going forward.